We'd like to call a regular meeting of Scioto Township Board of Trustees to order. This is July 23rd, 2024. We will have the roll call and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hathaway,
Present.
Palmer, present. Flintoff, present. Rizzo,
Present.
Carey, present. Noel, present. Riser,
Present, Collins.
all here.
All right, please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so adoption of the agenda. I sent out a memo to the board this afternoon. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but I apologize. We have a lot of changes to the agenda. This sort of caught us a little bit by surprise, but we've talked about how we're going to avoid having this happen again, but I will read through this, please bear with me. So the proposed changes to the agenda are to add a section on introductions and presentations, and this will allow us to introduce Murphy Harrington and Alicia King. We will remove item G4, the Vestergaard Agricultural Lease Agreement. That's not ready for tonight. We will move, or these are proposed again, move consent agenda items G9 and G11 to the beginning of new business. Add to the consent agenda item G13, authorize payment for the July 4th, 2024 holiday for Lori Carey, and that was provided to the board. Add consent agenda item G14, which is Microsoft Entra ID P1 for Duo, sorry. Integration for multi-factor authentication. Move to the consent agenda item J5, which is the approval of the conditional offer of employment to Murphy Harrington for Parks, Preserves, and Pathways Director. Move item J6 to the beginning of new business immediately following items G9 and G11. Move to the consent agenda new item J7, approval of conditional offer of employment to Alicia King for finance assistant / utilities. Two other items to bring to your attention. Item G12, I know there were some questions. The Trailwoods amended development agreement was placed on the agenda at the request of the township attorney, Mariah Fink, and she reviewed the documents and prepared the model motion for that agenda item. And also under reports, there is a letter from the township attorney to Priority Waste that was sent at the end of last week. And the intent is to discuss that when we reach the township manager's report. There were some extra copies of that on the table out there. I don't know if they're just, distributed, but they're probably not enough for everyone. But if you circulate them, you can see what we're talking about. And if you go to the agenda packet online, it is now there. Are there any other proposed changes to the agenda?
Excuse me, G12, where's it going now?
G12
Is staying where it is.
With Trailwoods?
Yeah, Trailwoods is staying where it is. I just wanted to clarify because there were some questions about it.
Okay,
It has been approved by the attorney.
Yes, it has been approved by the attorney. That's the point. It was generated by the attorney and approved by the attorney.
I would propose moving J2, J3, and J4 to consent as well. The conditional use permits for the Burchell Properties, Heritage Collision, for Dexter Auxiliary Services, another automotive, and then for the Luna Drive private road. I would propose putting those under consent because we've heard from them already, and I think they're going to easily pass.
I would be fine with it.
yeah, me too.
Okay, so in addition to the changes in the memo, we would also move items J2, J3, and J4 to the consent agenda. Are there any further changes to the agenda proposed? Would someone like to move the agenda as
I would-
changed?
I'll support. You
Okay.
do it.
I would move the agenda as modified on this record.
Okay, so moved by Riser, support by Noel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so the agenda is approved. That brings us to introductions and presentations. First, we have Murphy Harrington. Is Murphy present? Please come forward, have a seat at the table. Very pleased to meet you in person.
Well, I did tonsil surgery last week, so my voice is a bit low. But if you need me to speak up, just let me know.
Well, Aurora, would you like to introduce Murphy?
Yes, so, and I have quite a few agenda items here, so if you could just bear with me for just 1 second. So, the position, of course, of Parks, Preserves, and Pathways Director is currently vacant. And Murphy brings 9 years of natural area management and wildlife biology experience. Previous experience includes natural resources monitoring at Metro Parks in Toledo, Ohio, and as a teaching assistant at Bowling Green State University, along with the City of Ann Arbor Parks and Rec as a conservation worker. So we're very pleased to be able to offer this conditional job offer to Murphy and bringing a lot of experience in this. And I know Rita and Roy are also very happy and have been able to meet her already, so.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Are there questions or anything further for? Well, thank you very much. It's good to meet you in person. We won't force you to speak, while you're recovering from surgery.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And the next up is Balish. I'm not sure how to.
Belisha.
Belisha, is that right?
Mhm.
Belisha King.
So I will just stay here.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just listening.
Yes, no, that's fine. No, it's absolutely great. So, conditional job offer for, the finance assistant / utilities. And, Belisha brings with her 11 years of combined experience with accounts payable, accounts receivable, and also 10 years of experience in payroll processing. So we feel that with her accounting and payroll experience, she will be an asset to SIO.
Would you like to say anything further to introduce yourself? No.
Hi again, Bishop.
Yeah. We're excited to have you on board.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Well, I believe that concludes our introductions and presentations section of the agenda.
Yes, thank you.
We have communications to the Board of Trustees. Is there any comment about those?
No, they're all included.
Okay. Well, that brings us to public comment. This is a time for members of the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on any matter under the purview of the Board of Trustees. We begin with those folks who are here in person, and then we turn to those who are participating remotely. I do want to say, again, we had an incident a couple of meetings ago where people started interacting with each other out in meeting hall. And so I would like to ask that everyone direct their comments to the Board of Trustees and not to one another. And also, please do honor the 3-minute time limit. It's a way of honoring everybody's time. I know sometimes it's hard to get all of your words in, but do your best to get your comments into that 3-minute time limit. And Trustee Brazeau will be our timekeeper. Please proceed.
My name is John Stinson. I'm the president of Saginaw Hills Homeowners Association. And I just wanted to report to the board, I already talked to some of you and gave you a picture of the destruction of several of our mailboxes. It happened last Thursday. And the GFL truck, or not GFL, but now Priority Waste truck turned a corner and had something sticking out and just mowed all the mailboxes off of one of our stands, plus all the little wooden newspaper carriers that are underneath them. So we're getting that repaired. Tried to get that reported to Priority Waste, but they haven't been able to answer the phones or call back. They have a call in, leave your number, they'll call you back. And so they must be very busy. You know, I expect when somebody buys another company like this, that there's gonna be some bumps in the road in transition. You know, you can expect that. Especially when the one leaving probably didn't leave all their very best and brand newest trucks in this route. They probably swapped them out with some other trucks. But I just wanted to let you know that and just go on the record with that. But I was pleased to see the letter that the attorney has written to Priority Waste to see if we can get them to move. Thanks.
Yes.
Our lawyer does, more importantly.
Yes.
All right.
Good evening, I'm Bill Doty from 465 Wood Grove Drive. I'm here to talk about Aubrey Grove, SB 21021. I've got 3 quick points to make about the project. Recently, the Parkwood HOA board stated to residents that it opposes the development. However, they will not speak publicly about their opposition to represent the residents. They have told the residents that we are free to oppose the development publicly ourselves, which I do. I think you've heard me say that before. Particularly at not so much the development as the density of this development, and some other issues. Our bylaws require 67% of approval of the residents of any easements onto our property. The HOA board has declared the outdated easement as public and will not call for a vote. What is important is that the mortgagees also have to have a vote. And since they're supposed to vote, they have a lot at stake in any easement that could affect the property values. And if these mortgagees are left out of the process, there could obviously be some suits that follow, which would be unfortunate. One of my main concerns is that the limited backup capability of the 5 sewage grinders that are used to support their sewage out of each of the units. If there was a power outage, they probably cannot handle any more than 2 or 3 days without power generation. Leakage of these grinders into the bioswales will pollute U of M Lake with sewage. So I'm concerned about that because we have had 3 to 5 day outages in Parkwood condominiums. So therefore, it's conceivable that these folks could have the same problem. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kevin Jackson, a resident of Scioto Township for 28 years. Also here to speak on the Aubrey Grove property next to our condo association. My only point is we are not against the development, just the density that has been proposed. I'd like to give a probably not great example, but remember when Goss was athletic director at U of M and they put those big letters around the stadium and everybody said that it was not in the same context that they should be. It was out of scale. This development as proposed at Aubrey Grove is out of scale for the corridor that is coming down Z Road between Liberty and Park. And so my point is, if they don't meet all the legal requirements at the current proposal, You guys shouldn't have any problem not voting for that to proceed. If they come back with something reasonable that meets all the legal requirements, I'll be the first one over there to help them dig. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Kevin.
Pattinson, Scioto Township resident. First of all, people have been contacting me about GFL. Could you please put the GFL link to the complaint page back in the banner? It was there for a while. I think it,
Priority waste.
same thing. I'd like to see that back up in the banner. I'd also like to remind the board that trustee Knoll and clerk Flintoff were the only ones that voted against the GFL contract. And we need to remember that. Trustee Brazeau, trustee Riser, in a moment, I'm going to ask you a question. The supervisor will interrupt and say, this is not the time for back and forth. Supervisor Hathaway, please remember these are my 3 minutes and I have the floor. Please don't interrupt me. The reason I'm asking this question is not because I want you to have the courage to answer me, but because I want you to have the basic common decency to be honest with the residents you are asking to vote for you. Treasurer, trustee Brazeau, do you think trustee Carey should go to prison for trying to get the Zoom computer working for her roads committee meeting?
I'll answer. I typically won't respond back, but she is like any other citizen. She is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. She is due, she has the right to due process.
Thank you.
Period, end of story.
Trustee Riser.
Of course, not the same answer.
Clerk Flintoff, same question.
Of course not. It's outrageous.
Trustee Knoll, same question.
Of course not.
Candidate Reed, same question.
Of course not.
Candidate Brandt, same question.
No, the charges are ridiculous.
Candidate Yable, same question.
Absolutely.
Candidate Boyle, same question.
I'm not familiar with the case.
Trustee Brazeau, do you think this whole mess is a political attack created by Supervisor Hathaway?
Answer the question one more time.
Do you think this whole mess is a political attack created by Supervisor Hathaway?
I don't know.
Trustee Riser, same question.
Rob, how many questions do you have?
What's
I'm not, you'd have, that's a question best posed.
Clock is counting.
That's a question posed to Mr. Hathaway.
Clerk Flintoff, same question.
Based on everything I know, yes.
Trustee Knoll, same question.
Based on what I know, probably.
Candidate Reed, same question.
Yes.
Candidate Brandt, same question.
Yes.
Candidate Yable, same question.
Most likely, yes.
Candidate Boyle.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the issue.
Trustee Carey. I'm not asking you that question because it would be incredibly stupid to ask that question of someone fighting for their life in court. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Who's next? Come on up.
Okay, John Boyle, 44-year homeowner. And I want to thank you for the time spent by Chief Hood here, explaining what his thoughts are on the fire millage. I am not anti-tax. I fought 2 taxes in the last 20 years. There's a lot of taxes going on. I'm not anti-tax. Let's get that straight. Now, with regard to what's going on here, assumptions count. Assumptions can determine whether anything or everything is feasible or doable. So I am concerned about the assumptions going into the reports here. Plant Moran's comment that asking the public to vote is a courtesy, not a requirement, if we're dealing with millages. If you want to incur the wrath of the voters, just follow the advice of those consultants and advise them that their vote is irrelevant to the board's decision-making process. I don't think that's a good idea. sometimes following the letter of the law is not a good idea. We just talking about that here just a few seconds ago. The challenge in public service is you have conflicting goals. And the conflicting goal here is the fact that you have households who are stretched thin by inflation. And you have a fire department that needs additional resources. So there's a compromise that needs to go on here. And you folks are charged with dealing with that conflict. The millage of 1.35 mils generates $2.3 million a year. The proposals on the table go from 2.6 million to 3 million, which is a 2.1 million to $2.8 million increase, representing a 90% to 121% increase in the millage. And the millage, keep in mind, the millage is over and above inflation and over and above the effects of population growth, because population growth is typically covered by additional housing and additional business. And inflation is covered by Proposition A. A revised millage should not exceed two mils, which is a 0.65 mil increase. That's a 48% increase. That 48% will generate $1.1 million of additional revenue on top of 1.7, on top of 2.3 million currently in place. It will pay for 4 firefighters at $150,000 a firefighter, leave $500,000 on the table, which will pay for a mortgage for $7.3 million at 6% interest over 30 years. Again, this board should not approve any increase in excess of 0.65 mil. And that doesn't mean we can't go further. That means you go as far as you can see, and then you can see further. So if that doesn't work, and if there are a need, and we have time to examine the assumptions, we're getting the bum's rush here, then we should do it, we will do it, I will help.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Oh, if anybody wants my expanded comments, I made some copies here. My carbon footprint is suffering.
Thank you, John.
Say something. This is off the fire. Okay, I'm talking about ordinances, whether it was the priority GFL. We have ordinances or onsite sewer systems.
That's my bad. All right. Sorry.
Oh, we gotta set it.
Sorry.
Anyway, Paula Gloverson,
Okay.
longtime resident. So ordinances, why do we have them if we're not gonna follow them? Because the last meeting said, the contract, we couldn't change the garbage contract because we signed the contract. But we had an ordinance, so why did we ignore our ordinance? Same thing with onsite sewer systems, which you all know that I had a big, huge problem with back in 2007 when they wanted to pull 4 neighborhoods so they could continue to build down Jackson Road. I know more about sewer than I would like to know, but going down there, now I've been watching the J-Rod. Everybody should watch J-Rod. Listen to Jay Holland about developing, and it's too expensive to develop here. According, I was looking at the League of Women's Voters thing. And to me, we got a major utilities issue here. We've been building parks and doing all these things. Utility, sewer, water. I got my water bill. I hardly use any water. I haven't had water outside for a quarter, 177. And I live alone. So what do you think these new people are gonna get when they're trying to put in these things? So then I listened to the Barry Lonick and LPC and this whole Sloan Preserve. And I probably only have 1 minute left about that. And I really appreciate the Parks and Pathways. But there was a thing where we all found out, well, Sean Keogh and meeting with the township and some developers about annexing parts of SIOP. Now, it was a moot point when Ann Arbor put their new sewage plant. Do you remember when Ann Arbor came in and said about a new sewer plant? So we're gonna be able to get sewer down there eventually. It's how fast you all wanna develop here when you look at utilities, fire, and all that. And Jay Holland brought up a two-tiered thing. Now we got the DDA. Personally, we've got all that traffic backup. That road on Jackson didn't need that money. I don't know if that was ARPA money, but I'm very concerned about the arsenic. And don't say 15, 17 years ago, whatever they got, Baker Land Holding Lutton, they're gonna go across our property, the liability of dragging arsenic. And I feel it's from probably agricultural and probably has lead. I wanna see the water tested around there. I've called the Eagle because I am not happy with what is going on there. Now, Judy Monk, who's running for trustee, said, wait until the plan is out to ask about it. Well, that's, I go back to Gelman when they were gonna just go ahead and purge with down the whole creek and see what happened. So I have other things I'll probably say later about it.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Reed, Scioto Township. 5 of you are on the next month's ballot running for various board positions, and 4 of you have been endorsed by the Scioto Township Fire Department Union. I understand that some of you have decided that the appropriate millage rate for the fire department is 2.0. This is irrespective of the fire chief's request for a millage rate of 2.7, developed through years of experience and months of research. And I might add, as a previous speaker discussed, it's a compromise from what the fire committee actually decided was needed. It's just a little bit under, or more than half of what was originally requested. To dismiss the chief's request out of hand is a stab in the back of the fire department that endorsed you, and a slap in the face of our chief. I would ask that those opposed to the chief's request to share with us their research and the data they used to develop this rate of 2.0. From what I can see, it has no basis in fact, it's simply politics. This is a number dreamed up by the tax insanity and the thick Scioto folks, most likely in concert with Mr. Boyle, candidate for township supervisor. It is a rate that is not acceptable nor sustainable, as shown by the financial analysis presented earlier tonight. To those who think they know better than the chief and the finance folks with whom he consulted, I would ask that you stand up and do what's right for the township, its residents, and our fire department. 2.0 is politics, not facts. Let's all get behind this proposal and help get it passed. Thank you.
Good evening, Pat Stein, longtime resident of Scioto Township. Actually, I consider myself to be a real resident of Scioto Township. I'm of course referring to Charlie Nielsen's campaign postcard that said he was interested in hearing public comments from the majority of real residents of Scioto Township. I'd like to think of myself as being part of that majority. Is there anyone else here that considers himself to be a real resident? Is Charlie present to hear these comments? No, not surprised. This evening, I would like to comment on the fire SAD. I believe it's very important that SAD be placed on the November ballot. Ideally, I would like to see the SAD presented to the voters at 3.0 mils. And I believe the SAD should be no less than 2.7 mils. Every resident of Scioto should be provided at a minimum basic safety services while living here. 2.7 mils would provide just that and only that. Any talk of postponing this fire SAD to be handled by the next board is totally irresponsible and clearly not in the best interest of the Scioto residents. Trustees Reiser and Brazeau, are you present? Sort of, yeah.
Yes, of course I'm here.
Just not here. Okay, all your campaign literature reads that you want to fix Scioto. This is the perfect opportunity for you to stand by your campaign promises. Vote yes to put the fire SAD on the November ballot. To vote otherwise or propose that it be less than 2.7 mils tells me and all other voters that you don't have any intention of fixing Scioto. And if that is the case, then you should resign now and let your seats at the table be filled with two people who hold Scioto Township a higher priority than either of you. Supervisor Hathaway and Treasurer Palmer, this is your last opportunity to let the residents decide if they want a fire SAD or not. I ask that tonight you vote yes to put the SAD on the November ballot. I ask that you all vote yes to put the fire SAD on the November ballot. This is a life-saving measure, and the life you save may be your own or that of a loved one. Please vote yes and vote no less than 2.7. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Next. Is there anyone else in the hall who would like to speak during public comment? Please come forward.
Good evening, Board. Kathleen Brand, Scioto resident. As you know, I'm running for trustee, so I thought I would give tales from the campaign trail. I've been talking to people. They're very concerned about fire safety, as well as I am. So I'm gonna go on the record to say that I think that the voters should be able to decide this tax situation, that's the SAD, it should be up to the voters. And that's the way I would vote on it. So as my mother drilled into me, argue from facts. So Mr. Reiser, you have been on the record to say that you are willing to impose millage on the residents, that it would be appropriate to impose that through Act 33 and not take it to the voters. Is that still your position?
That's an option we have. I'm not.
Okay. Is that your position that you would like to impose?
No.
Okay, so is it your intent to vote for the 2.7 this evening, to allow the voters to decide?
We're gonna find that out after deliberation. I want to hear from my fellow trustees and I want to hear from the public. You'll find out when we vote on that.
Okay. That gives me no confidence, folks. If I'm a voter, I see no confidence that he wants the public to vote on this. And he's on the record to say that, you know, the board can impose. Now I would ask the same question for Mr. Brazeau. You were part of this process that determined 2.7, which is determined by financial analysis. So do you intend to allow the voters to vote for 2.7?
You get away, it's got nothing to do with whether I feel that the 2.7 is appropriate. I absolutely do. I think I've stated that 4 times now today, that I fully support 2.7. I helped develop the proposal. I
Okay,
can't
so
make that any clearer.
Are you
What
going to
hold on,
vote?
hold on, you asked me a question. I'd like to.
Okay,
finish.
I'm gonna
You don't burn
reclaim
your
my time because you didn't answer my question.
I'd like to.
But never mind, you don't need
Okay.
to. You don't need to. I think your answer stands, okay? Now, when it comes to the amount, let's keep in mind that Mr. Boyle is not a financial analyst. He's an actuarial scientist. So you can't take a number 2 and then say goes to 2.7 and apply a percentage to that. That's ludicrous. That's not how financial analysis works. You don't start from one point, you derive the number. So when he gives you all these percentages, this is this much more, it's not based on fact. It's just he picked a number out of the air and that's what he wants.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Are there any more people present in the hall who would like to speak during public comment? If not, let's turn to those who are participating remotely.
If you'd like to speak, please raise your Zoom hand. First up, we have Michelle, followed by Pam Ford. Hi, Michelle. Michelle, you're up. Are you there? Okay, we're gonna hold off on Michelle. We're gonna move on to Pam Boyd. Pam Boyd.
Thank you. Pam Boyd, SIO Government Watchdog. I want to thank this board and candidates for answering Rob Pattinson's important questions. All candidates and board members who have their name on the Fix SIO website should be well aware of the outrageous charges from Supervisor Hathaway against Trustee Carey, especially with the breaking news banner on the top of the Fix SIO webpage. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next up is Michelle. Michelle, are you there? If anybody else would like to speak, please raise your Zoom hand. We have 23 people in attendance.
Say she's muted, see like a red thing?
That she has that mute herself.
Or she may be muted.
Yeah. So Michelle, I'm asking you to unmute yourself, and you have to do that. If anybody else would like to speak, please raise your hand.
That it?
That's all we got.
Okay.
Sorry, Michelle.
Okay, let's move on to approval of minutes.
Oh, I wanted to respond to one of the comments,
Oh,
several of the comments.
all right. Trustee Noel.
We're receiving many complaints from residents about GFL. And I'm getting complaints in my neighborhood on a regular basis. As was pointed out earlier, the GFL contract was approved by a prior board 4 years ago in November of 2020, and less than 4 years ago. And two of us who are here tonight voted no on that contract because of concerns about the contract. Briefly, that contract heavily favored GFL. It was a 10-year contract, when a shorter term contract would have been probably more appropriate. Next, the reasons for choosing GFL to be the sole trash provider in Scioto Township were never clearly stated by the committee that looked at the issue or the prior board. In other words, there was no memo created explaining the rationale for the choice of GFL as our sole provider. While I was doing research on this issue, I spoke to two township supervisors, one in Oakland County, one in Washtenaw County, about the process they had gone through in selection of their trash provider. And what I heard from these two were that the townships created a memo, and I've got one of the memos here from Waterford Township in Oakland County, outlining the rationale for their choice. SIO never got that. And GFL was not the lowest bidder. So there was no explanation as to why the contract was given to GFL. I'm gonna show that to Joyce. She might find it interesting. We're also hearing complaints about the assignment of the GFL contract to Priority Waste. We didn't have a lot of choice in that because it was a contract that heavily favored GFL. And we were advised by our township attorney that the best option was to allow for the assignment. We didn't have a choice. There were no good choices here. Also, over the last 4 years in Washtenaw County and most of southeastern Michigan, the landscape for trash providers and options for trash providers has changed. There are very few options now. When we entered into this contract 4 years ago with GFL, there were more options. But today, those options are decreased. And had we protested the assignment, not agreed with it, and opened up the contract, likely there would have been major service disruptions, worse than what we have right now. So I just wanted to give people some background on that. I'm concerned. I would like to get this resolved. I don't know how it's gonna get resolved. It's gonna be a gradual process.
So I had one comment.
Yep.
You know, we gave those guys a chance, right? You heard me say to them, oh, remember they promised all these wonderful things. Respond in 9 minutes. We're fantastic. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? So it's all BS, as we all thought. We gave them a chance. I obviously talked to legal counsel. This is gonna be a legal matter. We have to pursue with those folks, is obviously document all their failures, right? The 2 hours, I think Mr. Stinson said he was on the phone for 2 hours and he still never got back to him. Some other person was on for 3. That's ridiculous. That makes Comcast look like a hero. Okay, I mean, that's terrible, right? Comcast makes you look good. So I don't know. I'd have to read the contract again to find out what our legal remedies are. And of course, we have an attorney here in the city who's better than me. But obviously, if they have somewhat derelict of responsibility, you now open at least the door up for them to at least minimally improve it. Or deduct some kind of cost, right? Punish it by money.
We have fines in the contract, but it hasn't been upheld.
Let's start exercising
Never been
responsibility.
all these arguments.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
But nobody
Can
was-
I just point out, this was meant to be an opportunity for trustee Noel to respond to some comments during public comment. And we do have a plan to discuss the priority waste issue when we get to township manager's report. So if we could hold off on further discussion, I think there will be an opportunity to share points of view about that. Unless there is further response from other trustees to public comments, let's move on. That brings us to the approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes. That is the regular meeting of July 9th. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I move their approval.
Okay, then we have a motion by Riser, support by Noel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, minutes are approved. That brings us to the consent agenda, which is different than what was printed. Obviously, we've got changes there. Is someone prepared to move the consent agenda as modified?
I would move the consent agenda as modified during our adoption of it.
Okay, trustee Riser moves, support from trustee Noel. On this, we will need a roll call because it does contain expenditures.
And I would like to circle that which we're approving, because I know we moved some things around.
Yeah.
You have. could
I'm
you
happy
do-
to read it.
Sure, that's a good idea.
Consent agenda as amended is now G1, G2, G3, G5, G6, G7, G8, G10, G12, G13, G14, J2, J3, J4, J5, and J7.
Very good. All right, so please call the roll.
Riser,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoff, yes, Brazo.
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
consent agenda adopted.
Okay, that brings us to reports. Are there comments on any of the written reports? Are there
Well,
further oral reports? I mean, we received a late arriving planning commission report. Do you want to make any comments about that?
it speaks for itself, but I do have, should we talk about, is this where we're gonna talk about the priority?
Well, when we get to the township manager's
So do you want to
report.
go around or something, Will?
Well,
Or do you just
If
want to
there-
do popcorn?
well, no, if there are reports, I don't want to go through a litany of, people sort of coming
I
up
have
with
a
something to
report. I
say.
have a report.
Okay,
So
why don't we do that?
what are the reports that should be in the packet?
Well,
Because I
there's a list of reports that are on the agenda cover page. And so
Which
they
that doesn't
could,
mean that they're gonna be in there.
exactly, but I don't want to, what we used to do in the past is go down that list and people would think of something to say, and I don't want to
Yeah.
do that kind of report.
No,
But
what,
if someone has something that they are planning to report, that is fine.
Okay,
what
so
was
what order?
included in the packet?
Well,
Like, were there
The-
any reports?
Just the financial report.
the financial
Okay,
report,
then John sent his,
John sent his.
and that's it. as
And
far
then
as-
we have the letter,
Correct.
from the
Okay.
township attorney.
Just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, because there's been a flurry of emails and all kinds of
Yes,
stuff
yeah.
going on.
Well, Clerk Flintoff, why don't we,
My report I put on the table
oh,
in between, but the
Okay.
investment report,
Thank you, Donna.
second quarter,
I don't think I got it.
yeah, you did. Someplace there.
Oh, no. I'll look at
Is it
yours.
in your book?
Maybe, if you're done.
I can put it other one in the office.
It's all right, that's all right. I'll look on with you.
Yes, thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Were you gonna go through it?
No.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Beginning.
All right, thank
It's pretty
you.
obvious.
I'll get one later. Clerk Flintoff.
Oh, sure. Just briefly on elections, a couple of updates. From here on forward, if people want to register to vote, please register in person only. If you register online, you won't be eligible to vote in the August 6th election, so please come to the township clerk's office. If you want to register, update your address in time for the August 6th election, you may do that all the way up to and through election day. We also get a Navy ballot anytime, online or here in person. We're now open constantly through election day. The clerk's office is open, both weekends, all day, Saturday and Sunday for the next 2 weekends, including, early voting is starting. This Saturday at 9 a.m., early voting will start. So one important thing for the 1,332 of you who have turned in your absentee ballots, if you have changed your mind on anything, the legal deadline in order to spoil your ballot, change your mind, is to come in by Friday at 5 p.m. to the clerk's office. Friday at 5 p.m., after which time you cannot change your mind on a ballot that you've submitted. So again, early voting will be here at Township Hall in this room, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Starting Saturday morning. SIO voters can vote here or down at 4135 Washtenaw Avenue, the Learning Resource Center. Also voting here will be voters from the city of Dexter, Ann Arbor Township, Northfield Township, and Webster Township. Thus far, we've issued 5,156 ballots. We've gotten 25% returned, so about 1,300. So we're tracking with the rest of the state. It's a kind of a sleepy August election. The kind of comparable would be August 2020 when we had 47% turnout. But frankly, that was during COVID when people were at home and a little more tuned in. And so I don't know what will hit, but I would imagine we might be in the 40% plus percentile. Any questions about the election? Okay, that's all I had.
Someone else
I
indicated.
had-
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, it was you, trustee Noel.
Brief update on Gelman. I don't have any additional information from Washtenaw County yet about the 4 new dioxane detections. I just have the narrative that I had last time I reported. I'm working on trying to get more information. I'm playing phone tag with Jennifer Kahn. And so I do not know the locations of these new detections or the dioxane levels of the detections.
They are new.
Yes, they are new. I mentioned this at the last board meeting. 4 new detections in Scioto Township. Brief EPA update. I corresponded today with the MPL coordinator in Chicago. They're continuing to evaluate the public comments received, and they are going to be formulating a technical response to everyone. So there'll be a document eventually. Also, I wanted to update the group on the work of the J-Rod Committee, Jackson Road Overlay District Committee. We had a meeting on July 15th. It was our 3rd meeting. There will probably be 1 or 2 additional meetings. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, August 19th at 4:30. We talked about how it would be helpful to invite any potential new board members who win in the primary to this meeting, just to begin to educate them, because the Jackson Road Overlay District issues are major issues, and it's helpful for anyone working in the township to have an understanding of them.
Do you think we should call it to be like a joint meeting so that some of us on the board can understand what the committee's been doing?
Yeah, maybe we should.
I mean, like, for example, I have no idea what they're doing. I mean, I haven't tuned in, you know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean.
And
it's
that
just not
way-
time.
Doug Luan and Jan Culbertson can give some background. I think it would be helpful, actually. Our last meeting was particularly productive. Brian is still here.
No.
Looks like he's not. He was there.
Why don't we explore that? What you said, say it again, the date of
The date that we set was August 19th. It's a Monday at 4:30.
You know, encouraging, Jan was encouraging people from planning commission and the BOT.
Was she encouraging people from the planning commission?
Yeah.
So she talked to you guys about it?
Yeah, it was my stellar report.
I didn't have had time to read it yet, John.
But the very first meeting,
Yeah.
back when it was a year ago, that was a joint with everybody.
It was kind of like.
And then it broke off into like two, the Mark was supposed to be on, but then I kind of got sucked into it and now I'm too busy.
She's encouraged, she likes that cross
I
pollination,
know,
the
she got-
ideas,
and I
so.
think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I said I would mention it to the board.
Well, I think it's a fair point. I mean, the last time we were doing master planning, that process kind of crossed the boards, and I think we could have had a.
So is this
You know.
the final meeting of the?
No,
Okay.
we haven't made a determination on that. We're gonna have at least 2 more meetings, I believe. And I know this was only supposed to go for 3 meetings, so I know there, Carlisle Wortman will probably be resubmitting an extended plan on that.
I think we budgeted for the 4.
Okay, I don't know that we did, but okay.
Well, why don't we have, confirm this with Jan? She's chairing, right?
Yes, but she wants this. I mean, she wants to open it up particularly to any new board members that are likely to get elected.
Any new board members aren't gonna
Yep,
affect,
I'm not
aren't
either.
gonna affect Forum or Open Meetings Act, but
But
if.
we need to.
Yeah,
But
that's why we would call them.
if we wanted all current board members to be able to attend, we would have to announce it as a special meeting.
Yeah, or we could, even if we don't do a special meeting, I could at least do a public notice saying a majority may be present.
Yeah.
People would be comfortable with that, as long as we don't start deliberating on board business.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it would allow for participation, as if it were a working session, presumably. Sure, let's do that.
Okay.
I'm curious. All right, is that the conclusion of
Yes,
your report?
that's it.
And it was August 19th, just to make sure I have it right here. And that's not a planning commission meeting, is it? No, that would be,
It's August 19th,
it's an in-between week in terms of.
4:30. So I don't know. I didn't check the board schedule or the
12th and
planning
the
commission
13th.
schedule.
Well, presumably it
Not
wouldn't
meetings,
conflict with
then.
the planning commission if it's
yeah,
the
it's
J
the
Rob.
off week.
Okay, all right. Well, that moves us, I believe, to the township manager's report, which
I'm out of here.
I will turn over to Township Manager Parker.
Okay, I have 2 items. As mentioned earlier, our township attorneys sent a letter to Priority Disposal related to the service issues that we've been faced with for during the month of July. Since the beginning of July, based on a report by Sean McCormick, we've had 273 complaints, and that may not include all of the complaints. Those are the ones that we could actually document. So it has been a concern, and in the letter that was submitted to Priority, there were like 3 or 4 major items covered. One is again related to the service and the fact that it's worse than what we received to date from GFL. And residents were not really that happy with GFL, so you can imagine how everyone feels at this point in time. And then secondly, we, in the letter, discussed the provisions related to termination. We did not go as far as stating that the contract was going to be terminated. However, it was basically referenced that we're gonna start looking at other options that are available for the township. And then thirdly, we requested a meeting with a principal there with Priority Disposal to discuss the issues and to also have them share with us their plan to resolve issues. And speaking with Sean today, he had indicated that the number of complaints have reduced. However, they're not at a level where we're comfortable. But I think it's important that we continue to have discussions with Priority, and if things are not resolved in a timely manner, take a look at what those options are. Also, I believe it was during the meeting when Priority was in attendance, there was a request to meet with them in mid-August for a status report related to where things are at. And I think that might be a good opportunity to actually see where they're at. And at that point, if things are not going very well, to take a look at those other options. And then I did not mention also that we're going to look at our penalties in the contract. We know basically what the complaints are. And we've had a meeting internally to talk about how we assess those penalties with Priority in order to get their attention.
I'll volunteer to go climb all over these people. I'd be thrilled to be honest with you.
Mariah, did you have,
Sign it to somebody.
did you have any comment?
You know, I just wanted to point out that we do, at least I've heard from Sean, we have an online complaint form
Yes.
that people should be
I do.
using. That is the absolute best way for us to track complaints. If you're calling Sean or if you're emailing him, those are still getting considered, but the online form, we have a way to run reports from that. We have a really good way to track that. So I would encourage anyone that has complaints to use that format instead of one of the other formats.
Clerk Flintoff.
Yeah, thank you. I wanna appreciate, the manager and attorney, Sean, Will, everybody working to start to hold them accountable. I think that's been, you know, an area that we've been building toward over the last 4 years. I agree. It's, as I felt in 2020, it was a bad idea to create a monopoly over a private service that we do not control. And here we are. I know that many HOAs and others had better service at a lower cost. We recently heard from Lock Alpine, who's exploring maybe trying to go it alone if they can again. And what I'd like to suggest, we talked last time, but I'd like to get a commitment from the board that at our next regular meeting, August 14th.
I thought it was the 13th.
August 13th, thank you. August 13th at 7 o'clock. I'd like to have some serious consideration of some options, and at least the following 3 options, if not more. There's probably more, but 1, what it would mean to bring in a second hauler. Because certainly our ordinance is not single hauler. It provides multiple. I know our contract has some limiting, but is it possible to bring in a second hauler and create some competition? 2, canceling the contract. And 3, repealing the ordinance that underlies the contract. at least those three. I'd like to give serious consideration to those three and certainly any other ideas people want to bring. But given that the market has consolidated so much anyways, and there are so many trucks going up and down the road, I'm not as concerned about, creating, service disruption or changes for our residents, but do want to kind of restore some control for them.
Is this something that you're asking me to prepare?
I'm asking the township attorney and you two together, whoever needs to be involved to prepare it. Definitely, there's some legal
So
aspects
we,
of it.
we also talked, at a prior meeting, we talked about having priority representatives come to that meeting, that first regular meeting in August, and they have been invited.
Have
we're
they
hop-
RSVP'd?
I talked directly with Paul Ruthenberg, and he, committed to be there and to, try and bring someone from their corporate level. I assume that was what you mean by a principal, we are hoping to meet with them before then. And we have some, follow-up ideas that we've discussed, before then to try and, continue the pressure to get their, quality of service improved. But, I think it's fine to explore options as long as there's not an anticipation that we're going to sort of choose one of them. I think it's fine, and I think it's probably prudent to explore what the implications would be of all of these things that you listed.
I think it's a great idea. Let's put them on notice. I mean, I think being nice is not gonna help our cause here, right? I mean, we have to be firm, obviously follow everything within the bounds of law.
Right.
But
that's why we have a township attorney sort of take point on the communication. So I think that seems reasonable to sort of incorporate that into our agenda for the 13th of August.
And any other ideas? Yeah. Those are just my three.
Yeah.
Well, one of the ideas we discussed, and I'm not sure if it's something that will materialize or not, but we talked about, what do we do if we assess the penalties and we have those dollars available? And we've had some discussion about potentially having another hauler work with the township to address those non-pickup issues that help residents until we can get through a process.
So kind of a secondary hauler.
Backup.
A backup.
Yes.
For problems that we would deploy. Yep.
Can I ask, would Warma have any role in this or bringing in Tom and Mark on this? Or I don't want to disrespect the work they do and the advice that they can lend, or I don't know what role they would play.
Tom, could play a role.
Yeah,
He has a lot of knowledge.
And they were both on the original committee for the single hauler.
So, I mean, that's a resource we might want to have.
Definitely.
Are there further questions or comments for township manager? And you said you had another item too. I don't
Yes,
wanna
if we're all
forget.
done on that particular topic, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, we had a situation occur where there was a repair that was necessary by one of our contractors related to one of the potholes where there's been problems with kind of like a break in the system. And so I was thinking perhaps Brandon could just update everyone because that's an amount that's beyond $5,000.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
It's a sinkhole, but the
Yeah.
I sent a good video to everybody's email, so when you get a chance. Yesterday, I was called by the road commission. When they were pulling concrete in front of the pump station, they noticed a sinkhole. They advised me, we went out there right away with field staff, pulled the manhole structure and looked in there. We seen what appeared to be at that time groundwater getting into the manhole structure. At that point, that is our main feed that goes into the pump station that most of the sewer flows into. So right there, it was sucking in sand and dirt, getting into our structure and eventually making it to the wet well. We are definitely blessed that the road construction is happening right now. If they didn't
You're
do.
the only person I've heard say that.
Very blessed. If this has went unnoticed for more years, eventually, right where that sinkhole is, there's a joint in the concrete. Eventually, at some point in time, it would have gave way and you would have seen a truck, or hopefully it wouldn't have got that direction. Hopefully, we would have seen it sinking in, we would have addressed it sooner, but it could have got to that point. So we're very lucky that the road work is going on. We're very lucky that we don't have to pay for any of the cement to be put back. And so we called Pipeline Management, who we'll be discussing tonight. They were very reliable and speedy. They sent somebody out, videoed what the problem was. We got them in the next day to inject and stop the leak without excavating it. Looking at the immense amount of groundwater that was coming in after the grouting and injection was starting to happen, it was substantial. So if we were to excavate it, more than likely we would have had to put well points in and pumped out the groundwater in order for them to complete the work. Could have took over a week, which we would have held up the road commission doing their project. This was also, this repair, I also got in coordination with Chris Donkowski from OHM. He thought this was the right way of doing it as well. So Pipeline Management did a great job. They got it taken care of this morning. The quoted price was $11,300. They did not use as much of the injection chemical that they proposed. It could reduce that a little bit. I was not able to get with Joyce on this. The company that's out there right now will do the concrete removal in the area where the sinkhole is. Scioto Township will have to bear the cost to have Diversified come back in. They gotta fill in sinkhole and compact it and get it ready for the concrete. They'll also have to put some coal patch down for a temporary road right there. I don't know that cost yet. It's not a huge area. I don't do great with guessing on costs. So I don't wanna assume the cost, but it should be minimal for what they're doing.
Will this fix it for good, or could this reoccur?
So I'm told that this repair should last anywhere from 15 to 25 years. But nothing is ever certain in our field. I put brand new band clamps on water main breaks, and for some reason they fail the next day and you're out there digging them right back up. Everything looked good before they left. Chris Donkowski also recommended that we actually line the whole entire interior of the manhole structure, as it is starting to deteriorate in there, to prevent this from occurring in the future. And we do have funds set aside, not this year, but the following years, $200,000 each year to address issues like this. So he did recommend doing it later this year, once the road project's done. There's quite a bit of work to make it happen. We have to ball off the main feed of sewer coming into the pump station and reroute it above ground with hoses and dump into the wet well. It's gonna be a while to figure that out, and probably a significant cost just to do one manhole. But it is something that I would also recommend too, after talking to Chris. So that's the basic summary of what we found yesterday.
Ever since we hired you, all these things have come up.
Just my luck.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is they're all been taken care of.
Yes.
Yes, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Brandon.
The system wasn't followed.
Yeah, and that's also, part of why we have reserves for these sorts of emergencies, so.
Correct, yeah.
Right, well, thank you for the report. That was
That was it.
it's the
Thank
conclusion of the report. All right, well, that brings us to the end of reports. If we could move on, we now have our unfinished business item, which is the recommendation of funding level and placement of ballot language for fire services on the November 5th ballot. This is your agenda item, Andy, if you would like to come forward.
And is Brian still here?
Here, I just
Yeah,
Okay, he just stepped out for a moment, okay.
Maybe trapped in his car if he's in his car.
If you did want the slides, I can grab one and pull up some of his stuff as well. I don't know where
Yeah.
you'd like to begin.
It's that ring.
Where do you want to start, Will?
Well, we had begun a discussion. I just wasn't sure if there was more that you wanted to say, Andy, before we sort of plunge back into that discussion.
You know, I don't know that I have a whole lot more, ton more comments to make. Couple comments that the board did make, related to construction costs going up, yes. That occurs. I believe our architect said expect 4 to 8 years or 4 to 8% per year, for every year to lay this. So yes, the need will still be there and the cost will be higher, the longer we put it off.
Will, do you mind if I talk through these?
Oh, yes,
briefly?
you had asked to present these charts.
It's just brief, just since we're information sharing. Just a couple of slides.
And I do have every document, that the board has. I can pull up any one that, the board would like to see. Assessment, the general ledger reports, perspectives, anything.
I just want to share a little bit of information. I apologize, those of you at home on Zoom may not be able to see this. It's in the packet. Those of you in the room can. Just a little bit about how significant it is to put a local proposal on a presidential election. Which, you know, happens only 4 years. SIO voters turn out for presidential elections. This is a 20-year history of the 5 presidential elections. Projected to the right is November 2024. Between our turnout for presidential elections is between 76% and 84% of voters. 76% and 84%. Starting from left to right, left, you've got November 2004. That top purple line, that's the total number of voters. The blue bars are the number who actually came out. And you'll see November 2004, November 2008, November 2012, it's going up. The reason that purple line goes down is because Dexter Incorporated. Okay, so Scioto Township geography went down. That's why if you ever look up the 2010 census, the 2020 census, you see our population numbers go down. That's because our geography was reduced. But our number of voters, my estimate for November 2024 is we're gonna have 15,600 voters. I think 79% turnout is conservative. That's, or 76% is conservative, 79%. 79% is what we had in 2020. I think we're gonna have at least that in 2024. And frankly, given the extraordinary events in our country over the last 2 weeks, I think we're gonna have tremendous turnout.
That's 2 days.
Yes.
So how do you think that has an impact? I guess I'm just trying to figure out, because what I'd be more interested in is not so much the turnout, I'd be more interested in when you have a millage proposal
Yep.
on a ballot.
Yep.
Okay.
So
There you go.
then, I want to compare that with who voted on the last 2 fire millages.
Got it.
So first of all, I looked back at all of the times that Scioto Township has ever put a local proposal on the ballot. Anytime it's been on a presidential election, it's always passed very comfortably.
Yeah.
The only times that any local proposal has gone down was the first fire police combo and in 2023. Those are the only 2 times.
Was the
Okay,
fire police
voting
combo,
down.
was the
There
fire
was
police
fire-
combo on a presidential election or not a presidential election?
It was a special election.
Special election.
Both of them were special elections.
So let me just repeat back what I think I just heard you say. So on general elections, they approve millages,
Mhm.
but on special elections, they tend not to approve.
Special elections, much less likely to. Certainly the bus millage in 2015, the first time we put that in, there was only 1,500 people who came out for a special election. And a majority approved that. So it's not that special at special elections. SIO voters don't. SIO voters want high level of services. They want an assurance of basic fire services. So generally they approve proposals, but they always have approved proposals during the presidential. And if you look at what I put here, were just Since November 2016, the top 3 lines are the 3 presidential turnouts. And then in between are the 2 special elections we held on fire questions. So the second column, November 2019, we had 3,000 people come out to vote on the 1.35 mil, okay? 71% voted yes. Okay, so 2,000 people voted yes, 1,000 people voted no. Then fast forward to November 2023, yeah, it was a 2-to-1 margin against it, but that too was only about 3,500 people. And it's not to discount their votes, because we need to listen to them, consider them. That's why we're considering a largely scaled back proposal tonight. But when you look at the fact that we're gonna have 7,000 more people come out in November 2024, and it's not even that they're the same people. And I think what we need to recognize is we were going through the process of shoring up our special assessment process. We were sending out the notices to property owners. Okay, and certainly there's a big overlap, property owners and residents and voters. But in the presidential, you're gonna get all of the renters. You're gonna get a lot of people who maybe were not activated.
Or we're really not impacted by the millage increase.
And
It's
they
like my
didn't
kids,
come out to
right?
vote.
My kids don't really care about the millage increase because they don't care, because they don't have to pay it, right?
Right.
Dad pays it.
So, and that,
Well-
I mean, to be real, that's part of it, okay?
Yeah.
And also, what's part of it is you get, there's a lot of people who just vote every 4 years. There's some people who just don't vote in between. And so that 7,000, I just wanna say that it's going to be a much bigger group of people. 2.5 times as many people will come out to vote as voted a year ago, 2.5 times. And it's going to be a different mix of people.
Well, I think that's the key thing. I mean, that's a good takeaway is, like I said, the key people who are going to vote are renters, who aren't gonna be impacted. This, my kids, other people would more likely say yes, because that sounds like a fire thing. Sounds good when you first hear it. And they're not gonna necessarily be impacted by it. So that's a
Right.
positive thing.
And positive. And of course, ultimately, we don't know. You know, we don't know what people are gonna say. We can do our best to educate people. But I think the very best chance that we have of getting a majority of our voters to vote on this is in November of 2024.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like it.
So I don't know when it's my turn, but I have some comments.
It's your turn now.
So, to answer, a resident's question, I think it was Kathleen Brandt. I know we can do this ourselves, but I would not be in favor of putting a 2.7, doing that ourselves. That's too much to do ourselves. So as I've been looking at this and I've been talking to firefighters and I've talked to the chief and I've talked to some of the others on this board, the pros, the biggest pros is it's what our fire department is recommending. It's what our chief is recommending. It's what people who know more about firefighting and running a fire department than me are recommending. Another pro is what our finance guy, our finance director is recommending. So I would have to be like second guessing there, and I'm not prepared to do that. It's also a smaller request than 2023, and it's a hell of a lot simpler. It's not tie-barred, and if we do this, then that, and the different years or whatever. So it's a smaller, simpler. It's also got a scaled back scope. That's a pro. I supported the 3.7 up to 3.75 and the 7.5 a year ago, and I went door to door, and I've got the flyers, and I had the yard sign, and my wife and I, we thought it was gonna pass, and when it lost 2-1, that was a gut punch, and I was surprised about it. The cons are really, if it loses, then what? What's our plan B? And the alternative to doing a 2.7, which I think I'm okay with, would be to do something less than, I'm not in the 2.0 camp and no more than 2.0 camp. So if anybody said that, they heard that about me, that's bogus. I'm for more than a 135, more than a 2.0. I want to get us there in 2.7. I worry that trying to do it in one fell swoop could backfire. It's 100% increase in it. And I'm not saying it's not warranted, but it's a raising our fire millage by 100%, and that might resonate with the no voters. So we've got to do a hell of a job promoting this thing and getting the word out. I also worry that there are going to be 4 county-wide millages for certain things. There's the enhanced emergency services, there's the veterans, there's the senior tax, there's the mental health and public safety. And all of those are to renew and restore. And renew and restore is like, oh, we already pay that, I'll check that. So I worry that in comparison to a renew and restore, this could get pushback. So, I mean, it's like I'm not saying we're playing poker, but we're going all in. And if we want to go all in, I'm there with us. But what happens if we're all in, but we don't get the support in the community? Then what do we do?
We're in the same place.
Yeah, but so
Then we get
the
creative
question is,
and creative.
should we do something less than 2.7?
Why?
Because we can gauge support.
Not
Because
necessarily.
I know, I agree.
You don't know that.
Look, I agree. I'm just, that's the push and pull for me. That's all.
And John, I will say, Brian offered an option that's below 2.7. A feasible option. He is, and Brian, I don't know I mean, not that you have to pull it up, but he does have an option that's less than 2.7.
Well, I know, and I'm inclined to support this, but I'm doing it with my fingers crossed and saying a Hail Mary and hope that we can get it across the goal line.
Well, bottom line, it needs to be the voters that make the decision.
At this level, I agree.
Let's try
Sorry.
and bring it back so people are having a turn to speak. Trustee Noel.
They all talked.
Okay. I support the 2.7 mils. And this represents a reduction from what we had done before, the prior request. And in fact, isn't this approximately a 60% reduction?
It's like you can tell, it's like 60% of what we asked.
Of what we asked, yes, yes. I mean, so couple things to consider. We've had several studies that have documented the need to expand fire services in Scioto. The township population is increasing. Certain areas of the township are becoming more dense, Jackson Road corridor specifically. Talking about changing zoning in the Jackson Road overlay district to allow for higher buildings, height, yep. The 2.7 mils would allow for some new personnel and the ability to adequately respond to more of the calls for service. One of our problems is the fire department has been underfunded for years. And you know this, Donna. Just like water and sewer, we hadn't dealt with water and sewer issues. We decided to deal with them all at once. We called it ripping off the Band-Aid. But I think it's time for this board to take a proactive stance regarding doing what's best for Scioto residents. This board is being asked to consider whether or not we place the ballot question on the November ballot. We don't have to decide with certainty whether or not it will pass. That isn't it. That's not our issue. Our issue is to put it on the ballot and let the residents decide. And we will have a much higher percentage of registered voters voting in November than what voted in November of 2023. So it's going to be a more representative sample of the number of registered voters in Scioto. So I strongly support putting this on the ballot. 2.7 mils. I'm done.
Okay. Trustee Carey.
I have a question. So put this in front of the ballot or in front of the voters, the 2.75, and they vote yes, let's say.
2.7.
Or what did I say?
2.75.
Oh,
Sorry, I just
okay,
wanted to
I'm just
correct
trying to
you.
get more money. Yeah, but no, 2.7. And let's say we end up securing federal and state grants for a brand new fire station. So that 2.7, we don't have to use all of that we could up to, correct? Because it's a special assessment. Okay.
Yep.
Did you do that 60% calculation?
I didn't get your same number, but it is a significant decrease from last year.
What is it about?
So do you include this 0.75 for capital?
Yeah, I did 2.7 divided by 4.5.
Yeah.
That's how I got
In my
to
mind,
60%.
I didn't actually calculate.
60% last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, yeah. But that's why I said 60%. Can I make one point on the 2.7 mil?
I want to make sure that.
Oh,
doesn't
no,
carry.
okay, just go ahead.
Okay, yes, great. Thank you. On the 2.7 mil, I want to say I support the 2.7 mil because it's option 3 is too much. We don't need that. We don't need 3. Option 1, it's not enough. Option 1 at that 2.5, we would be at this board table, like, let's say we need a new truck. We would be at this board table saying, oh, we need to assess enough for this 1.7 million, or this or that. There would be so many small actions. What I like about the 2.7 over 12 years, not 16 years. So I want to say specifically, I support the 2.7 over 12. Because we would save 1.7 million in interest.
Yeah, yes, no.
Okay, if we do the 12 years instead of the 16. That said, 12 years would be a longer period of time where we're gonna be able to ensure that the fire department has enough funding. That'll be more time than we've ever planned for the fire department. And I'm really proud of that we've done all this research, we've made a good business case for it. This is the first time where we're really doing long-term planning. So I just want to say I'm supportive of the 2.7, but at that 12 years so that we can save on interest.
All right, so 2 comments and 2 challenges for you. As again, I'm for the 17th time, I'm for the 2.7, as I think I've said that, I can't imagine how many times. So I'm gonna challenge you guys with 2 questions. If we go for the 2.7, help me understand what the promotional plan is to get the word out. So we have the highest chance of success to make sure it does pass. Secondly, if it fails and we're down to 1.35, from my straw poll analysis of I've done the voters I've talked to, I think that you are all gonna be here in the next board meeting, the three people there I just pointed to. So you and you, you're gonna have a 1.35. They didn't ask about you. No, I just talked about those 3.
No, he ignored me too, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm with them all with you. We're in session.
They did. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Please
So
finish your.
in all likelihood, the 3 of you will be here. I'll be up north. So, or down south. So the question I have for you, if it's 1.35, what are you going to do? The option is what you call Act 33. That is one option you could do.
It's all Act 33, but
Yeah, it's.
imposed, Act 33 to the voters or Act 33 at this time?
Are you gonna oppose and say, all right, we're gonna override that will and do the vote? What are the 3 of you going to do? How are you going to vote? If they're down to 1.35, they're in trouble. They need the money. They are running a deficit. What are the 3 of you going to do?
Well, some of it is gonna have to be determined by the people on the new board. We don't know who's gonna be on.
I'm
the
asking
board.
you 3 though. I'm asking the 3 of you. What are the 3
We
of
may
you going
not
to do?
be the determining factors in it.
So I'm fully committed to figuring out how to fund the fire department, but I honestly, my very first, second, and third thing is to get a well-informed, realistic question before the voters. And then let's hear what the voters have to say. I think there's multiple options, Mark. I think there's Act 33, I think there's millage, I think there's different ways to do it. But those would be far secondary to me to getting the vote of the people.
I understand.
And I think honestly, and one more thing to the promotional plan, I asked Joyce for some input on this, is Joyce has done a really nice job of starting a public education around the bus millage renewal as sort of a, template, kind of the first time that we've done really kind of proactive education about that in a way that we didn't do for the first time around. And so I would hope that we could build upon that from the township's perspective for any fire question we put on the ballot.
Okay, let me ask this a different way, okay? Because it's a binary answer, it really is. If the millage fails, and we're at 1.35, are the three of you willing to say, all right, we as the board are going to enact, I can't remember, whatever it's 33, and override that and
Impose
bump
a
it
levy.
and impose a levy? Are you willing to do that?
No.
Okay, I'm asking, so you're saying no, are you no as well, or yes?
I'm gonna look at different options. I might do that. Yeah, very
Okay.
well, but not before we put it before the people. I am not gonna do that before we put it before the people.
I'm talking about if the millage fails.
Yeah, and certainly, I think there's other options too that I would look at beyond just this, imposing it under PA 33. I think there's a couple different ways to do
I'm
it.
just looking for the backup plan, that's what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
to, what's the backup?
So I would implement a backup plan, but it would be far superior to have the buy-in of the voters for 12 years.
100%.
12
But
years.
they don't.
So that we can bond, but.
Yeah, but what if they do? You keep
Then-
going to
then
the.
we're-
Yeah, and
we're-
I guess, Mark, I don't have enough information to say absolutely, like the bonding for 10 years. I don't know if you do it at the board table, if that, you can do that, do that, and that action can actually carry for 10 years to cover a bond. I don't know that. I know that a ballot question can, but I don't know that we can do something at this board table that lasts more than a year in the eyes of somebody who's gonna be issuing us bonds. You know what I mean? So I'd have to look into that. So I don't even know if it's either or, because I don't even know that doing it at the board table actually would have the same effect in being able to borrow money. I don't know if anybody's looked at that, but I certainly doubt it, because I don't think anything we do at this board table can last 10 years. Any act we take at this board table. So I know people are kind of tossing it around like, where you at,
Yeah.
But like, it's not, I'm not actually sure that that's the same thing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, like I said, the safety net. I'm just trying to, can we create some kind of safety net? If this thing doesn't go, that we're just not leaving the firefighters exposed. I'm just trying to.
No,
I just like some
I'm
kind of
right.
guarantee, man.
Yeah,
That's all
I'm
looking for.
right with you, but I think the first thing to do is to put it to the voters. I'm
100%.
certainly committed to exploring all other options, but I just don't have enough information to know what those are.
Chief, we had a conversation earlier and we were discussing different options, I guess. And you said there's many ways to skin a cat. So there's just not one way. And if this fails, then we'll have to look at creative solutions. And I am very much into looking at why we were not funded through the state and the federal grants, because Canton, fourth fire station, net zero, had just recently a grant, full fire station. Grand Rapids, full fire station. They got two? Yeah, why is that? Who's not working for us? And is it because that we've been so derelict in maintaining our fire department all along? Like, why would we give this wealthy community money? They can't even take care of their fire department.
I wish I could answer that question. We're exploring all avenues right now. I think I passed on to the board that we'd worked with Senator Peters' office, and they had put into a Senate Appropriations Bill $7 million towards this congressionally directed spending program. His office approved it, went through in Senate Appropriations Committee, that got removed. We have that same application in with Representative Dingell's office. So we may get some of that money for the house. So I mean,
And if we do, we can assess less, and we would assess
Absolutely.
less. I think we all agree.
Yeah. All right, so one last question. Who's gonna be responsible for the promotional campaign?
You are.
Well, wait a second.
You just volunteered.
Up north, I think that's gotta be, I thought it's gotta come from, I mean, how does that work? Yes, I mean, what can
So
people
there's,
do or not
the
do?
township can certainly do public education, and I would say that, you know, we would maybe need to organize a little committee of the board or something to work on that. But, with our manager, but also there would need to be, a political committee established.
Is there money that
outside.
can be established for that and funds that can be
Not
established?
for the township.
Not,
public money.
yeah, not out of the
That's
township.
that's where the separation has to occur.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, but certainly somebody on their own time outside of township
Well,
hall
let me
would
ask you-
establish that and fundraise.
Could you take the business case we built? Because the whole reason for building this business case was to
Yeah.
sell it not for us, it was to sell it to the township residents.
Totally.
That's the whole purpose of it.
Yeah.
Can we, the township, print that and then mail that to, are we allowed to do that?
It would
As
be
long as it
using
doesn't-
township.
We can't
policy.
proselytize, we can inform.
Yeah, as long as it's
so that-
education and
Well,
not
it's
having.
educational.
Yeah, so Joyce, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, we can, provide information to educate, the public related to the ballot question, and that's primarily what we're doing right now
Okay.
with transit. And we've been able to use, some resources to support the township because we really do not have a lot of the expertise in-house. And so we're using a couple of people to help us with that.
So much like the newsletter, we could
Yeah,
make that.
newsletters,
Take the
one.
ballot, the business proposal for the fire department, we could mail that to
Yeah, we,
Union Township funds, correct?
we have material at the front desk. We sent out, a letter to residents to give them more information on what the ballot question is and what those dollars would be used for. So, basically, it's just really educating the public and getting them at least to understand why this is important in the community
Yeah.
without advocating.
And
The yard signs come from for the bus.
so,
Was that?
There is a committee that's working on advocating for the transit millage, but it's not something that we're doing within the township.
okay, and outside,
Separate action.
I just got a input from the union president, Lance Baird, and he said that it was the International Firefighters Union has resources for that political campaign, but last year it was cash flow. So the problem was on the pro side, they were outfunded and out-organized by the tax sanity people.
Might happen again.
Which might happen again, and I would also put the anti-tax in that smaller area of voters who are gonna come out, and it might happen again. But the point is, we would still be in the same situation we are
Better
now.
pool. You got a better pool.
We'd be no worse off. We would have tried to do this through the most democratic way possible, which I think is honorable. We have a well-informed, honest question for voters.
Mhm. And we can get that business proposal or the business case out on the website, make that prominent. If we can somehow mail that either us directly, I will create the infographic. Get that out there as an educational piece. And maybe that can be funded by the union. That would
We've
be
seen your list.
fantastic.
Chief has. You were going to say something.
I just had one comment, the clerk mostly covered. The union president, I did speak today, and he says he does have union resources available. And he believes there is also a pro campaign that exists already.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
I have no more questions. I'm ready to vote.
All right.
All in? Yeah, I think so.
Are there any other comments? I'd be prepared to offer a resolution.
We haven't heard from Donna.
Thanks, guys. You talk about the 135 and the way we've always handled it. the whole thing started, this process, when we had Dexter under our umbrella. They already had their fire millage. So we did the SAD to exclude those residents from paying twice, because an SAD has geographical boundaries. So, and it's worked until that reason is no longer necessary, but we did it as a levy or whatever, taxing people on their value, taxable value. Just made it fair, and it went with the time, and so, again, it worked. However, we're looking at, maybe it's not gonna work quite as well that way. But you do with an SAD, we have the right to say, put that much money on the tax bill. And we did not want to do that when this all started. But we had to do something. They had to have revenue to run the department. You could no longer fund it out of the general fund. And we've come a long way.
Well, before you make your motion, I will weigh in briefly. I sense where this is going. I hear the arguments. I think this was helpful to have the analysis of the vote, past votes. I am not supportive of the 2.7, and it's not because I don't support the 2.7 as funding the fire department. I'm very concerned about whether it will pass and what will happen. And I know that the fire department is underfunded right now with 1.35, and that would mean an additional time with underfunding. And I would like to address that immediate need. That's where I put the emphasis, is on addressing the immediate need of the fire department as it exists now, rather than pushing forward necessarily with the second fire station. If you're not putting the second fire station in the equation, then a two mills, I think, is adequate to address the fire department's needs as they stand. And I know that's disappointing. And I've been, Chief, you persuaded me right off the bat that, we should start looking to the future in terms of the second fire station. And we've been working towards that. And I think meeting the capital needs of the fire department is something that we've been working on and will continue to work on. And it may be that we're able to secure funds, the township is able to secure funds from either the federal government or the state government. I think that funding for fire departments as municipal islands is just, it's not the right approach, but that's not really the question that's before us right now. I am I guess concerned about the question that you raised, Mark, about how the effort is going to go forward in terms of educating the voters and an advocacy campaign. I was not really excited about what happened in 2023. I think everyone is sort of looking at that and saying, wow, we did not do what we needed to do. I don't know if anything that we had done differently would have made a difference.
And you were right about that concern. You expressed that concern at the onset, and you were right.
Yeah, so I think, especially with Joyce's departure, I'm concerned about how that's going to work. I mean, it's one thing to say we're going to have a committee of the board to run that effort, but I've seen how well you worked with these communications consultants that we had for the education campaign. We don't yet have somebody as an interim. I don't know if even if we succeed in finding someone as an interim that they'll be able to pick up where you leave off on that. So I'm very concerned about whether we'll be able to stand up this effort for a 2.7 in the face of a no campaign. And I think, it's pretty sure that we will face one if we put 2.7 on the ballot. But I sense where this is going, so I think I'll just be, maybe I'll be the only one to vote against it. But I think that's how I'm gonna vote.
Well, I'll only comment to your point is we have to execute this campaign because there likely will be a no campaign, or at least, again, it's a guarantee, more of a guarantee or de-risks us not getting the 2.7 as long as we have a very aggressive educational campaign. If we don't do that, then all the time and effort that went into all the work that Andy did in the proposal was basically a waste of time. So it would be really an insult to Andy if we don't leverage that media and share that with the broader audience. It's.
And somehow, the advocacy campaign has to come together and, you know, sort of in a way that I didn't see last time around.
Yeah.
And so I think the challenge really is there for both the township as educating voters and whoever pulls together that effort outside in terms of advocacy, that has to happen too.
Yeah, if we can get the support of, like you said, the union, that'd be fantastic.
Well, I think my sense of the union, and not to get into the weeds in this, but you know, unless that's different kind of commitment in terms of their involvement in the advocacy than what we had last time around, I don't see that as, I would not rely on that. I think it has to be more of a grassroots SIO effort that comes together around the advocacy campaign. So that would be one caution I would offer, is not to rely on the union. I have respect for the firefighters union, but we're really talking about the state level union, and I did not see that involvement really.
The international union,
Yeah.
not our 9 members.
Yeah, no, I like the firefighters union and our guys. I'm not denigrating them at all. I just I don't see the leadership for the advocacy campaign coming from that.
So let me just, I swear to God, my last comment. I can certainly help with being a content creator, that's no problem, but somebody has to be the content executor, meaning who's gonna make sure once we produce these pieces, they're printed, they're mailed, they're gone out the door. So somebody within Scioto Township has to do that.
Or the political.
We're starting to verge on the line of sort of organizing the campaign, and we probably shouldn't get too far down that path. I just want to caution everybody and say that based on what I saw last time around, we have to do much better on both the township front, which I think we've started to step towards with Joyce's leadership on communication around education, but we have to do much better on the advocacy.
Well, I think the other way too, you can mitigate the resistance campaign, for lack of a better term, I'm not sure what to call them, is to have, I always
I'm sure they'll come up with a creative.
Yeah, I'm
name.
sure,
Yep.
well, I said, I'm not saying we take whatever they say and say, oh, we'll do that. I'm open to getting their feedback. I'm open to hear if there's a Republican that walks in, I'm open to hearing their side of the story. I'm not just gonna condone or agree with it, but I'll at least listen to them. And I think a lot of people, in most cases, after 42 years of marriage, I can tell you, the other party just wants to be listened to.
Yeah, we have a lot of residents that want to be listened to too.
100% agreed. So I think we can solicit feedback, and that proposal can certainly be updated and changed. But whether we take their input and make a change is different than just listening to them. Right? So I'm not saying, oh, whatever they say, we're gonna do. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I'd like to hear them out. They may have a good idea. We're like, huh, maybe we should have done that.
Oh, I hope the optimism that we're.
Yeah, right,
This
just
group,
combine.
this
Yeah,
group
yeah,
is
I got it, I got it.
enduring
I hear you.
is- carries us through, but
You know.
I'll turn it over to you, Clerk Flintoff, to make your motion.
Sure, I'd like to introduce a resolution here in your packet to direct the clerk to submit the adopted ballot proposal language for the fire protection millage and for it to be placed on the November 5th, 2024 ballot at a regular meeting held here tonight. The whereas clauses are as is. I will just read the parts that I've filled in here. Whereas the township board has determined that based on information from its accountants, replacing the current 1.35 mill rate with a rate of 2.70 mill is in the public interest. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scioto Township Board of Trustees directs the clerk to submit the following fire protection millage proposal ballot question language that was approved on July 23rd to be placed on the November 5th, 2024 state general election ballot. Language of the proposal. Shall an increase in tax limitation authorized that by the Police and Fire Protection Act, PA 33 of 1951, imposed on all taxable real and tangible personal property in the township of Scioto, county of Washtenaw, Michigan, be enacted in an amount not to exceed 2.7 mils for a period of 12 years. 2.7 mils for a period of 12 years, beginning in the year 2025, December tax bill, and ending in 2036 inclusive. As a replacement of the current millage of 1.35 mils for the purpose of the 5 bullet points. And then finally, it is estimated that 2.7 mils would raise approximately $4,597,351 when first levied in December 2025. That is taken from the report prepared by our assessor. That's what I offer.
So what about this little blank here? Is that empty?
Oh, yes. So what is that? I will verify what this is. The 2.7 mils, the dollars on each 1,000 taxable value.
Okay.
What's the decimal point there?
Is it on a?
$2.75 per. 275. This is why I didn't want to do it at the table.
$2.70 per thousand.
Right.
Right, okay.
Okay, $2.70 on each 1,000. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, so we have, is that the motion?
Yeah.
Motion by Flintoff, is there support? Support by Noel. Unless there's further quick discussion, call the roll.
Okay.
Yes.
First up.
I'm
sorry. Wow, sorry, Joyce is rocking out. Yeah. Okay. Okay, apologize. This is kind of fantastic. Yeah. Okay. First up, here are rules of order.
That was something new.
That was great. Okay, per our rules of order tonight, we're starting with Riser. Hathaway,
No.
Palmer. Yes. Flintoff, yes. Brazo.
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
resolution adopted 6-1.
Okay.
Chief, that was David and Clark, that was an excellent
Yeah,
report or presentation.
yeah, really
Yeah.
good document.
There was a lot of folks that worked on this. I need to thank them as well.
So, well, thank you.
You're not done yet. We're not done yet on the presentation.
But we have a long way to go.
So let's move on to new business. We reconfigured new business so that we have 2 items that moved from consent. These are changes to the handbook. So Aurora, if you wanted to come forward. My understanding is there was just some tweaking of those 2 items. So we wanted to do those before we talked about the
Is the previous agenda G9?
Yeah.
Book section 13,
Right.
all right, I can have it. Changes.
Yes.
And it is highlighted in yellow in italics, just to point out the change.
Thank you, Aurora.
Different than what we talked about earlier, or no, it's the same, but you just highlight. Okay.
Thank you.
Just look at the yellow.
I rounded it off. And the italics.
Got it, boss.
Does that address the concern about this? Okay.
So do you want to share a little bit about why we're changing this?
So for this section, it's the work schedule section, just to indicate what the actual work schedule is for the staff. Meaning staff that is not field staff or fire.
excluded from this, so it's just indicating our hours are 8 to 4. With Monday through Friday with a 30-minute paid lunch. Nothing changed with that, it was just to indicate and put it in writing. And then we added a paragraph indicating the Board of Trustees, based on the recommendation from the township manager, has the sole responsibility for establishing and maintaining the work schedule for the employees under their authority. And then staffing needs, operational demands may necessitate variations in the start and end time. So we wanted to make sure we put that in there, should there be a need for authorizing a temporary adjustment to those hours. And then we outlined full-time employees expected to work 8-hour full day, part-time is scheduled. And then we indicated office and appointed personnel, and then inspectors, assessors, field personnel.
Yeah, I want to thank you for putting it in writing. I know this has been kind of pretty much, you know, the practice in Township Hall, at least since I've been here. I think it makes sense. I want to just note the 8 hours. It's a good day. It's not a 9-hour day. I want to note that for our employees, and I want to confirm that people accrue PTO and all the other associated benefits based on that full 8 hours, even with that working lunch. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Someone prepared to make the model motion. So moved by, excuse me, Treasurer Palmer. Is there support?
Support by Carrie.
Support by Trustee Carey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, it's adopted. That brings us to G11. Is there a similar
Yes.
change there?
And this section is actually for sections 19 and 20. Under section 19, and this was a prior, I believe, adoption by the board to just indicate that compensatory time or comp time is no longer part of a schedule, leaving just flex time and overtime still applicable. Just a tweak in the language regarding exempt employees are expected to work a reasonable number of hours in their regular work week. Leaving the rest of that paragraph regarding exempt employees within. And indicating exempt employees may flex their time within 2 pay periods. Change to that. It was 1, but 2. It was brought to our attention that sometimes it was difficult for an exempt employee to work the flex time if they were late in attending a meeting because of the way it fell in a pay period. So then we extended it 1 additional pay period to be able to flex their time.
So the tweak is to the model motion would be to add or to modify it to say to adopt amendments to sections 19 and 20 of the Scioto Township Employee Handbook.
Correct.
As proposed in black line and bold in the background section of this agenda item.
Correct, and 20 was striking out the comp time for the utility department. And it's not just the utility, it was as a whole, but comp time was mentioned in the section of utility.
Is someone prepared to make the model motion as modified?
Another correction.
Oh, there's another correction?
Small correction under section 20, 4th paragraph, first sentence, when scheduling the use of vacation, maybe replace that with PTO.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure, because we just have PTO just to not confuse things.
Yes.
And I just wanted to comment too, that this shift in section 19, we made just a couple of years ago when we were kind of tightening some things up around here. We did away with comp time for exempt employees. With the flex time, there's some recognition that people need to flex their time. I just want to make sure that we don't, start having flex time accrue as any expectation of payment. So I guess a question to you is, what if an exempt employee leaves with a few hours of flex time on the books? Are we under any obligation to pay them?
No.
Okay.
Because they're salaried exempt, I would say that to closely monitor your flex time, because that flex time should be used within those 2 pay periods anyway now with this change. And use that appropriately within that time frame, because it should go away after that time frame. There should be no flex time if they have not used it.
So with the edit to paragraph 4 under section 20, and the modification to the model motion, is someone prepared to make the model motion as modified?
So
Moved by.
sorry.
I have a
Excuse me.
question.
Oh, sorry.
On the use of that, where we've stated, within 2 periods. Is there something that should be added that they must use it or they'll lose it? To put it bluntly, you may not want to say it that way, but that created a problem in the past.
Yeah.
And we have people that built up.
I would support it, because it had been a problem in the past here with comp time and other things, just to be really
Yeah.
plain.
You might want to have that included.
So after the sentence, exempt employees may flex their time within 2 pay periods, indicate the.
How about must?
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as the language goes, someone else can help with.
Yeah, but I would support that, Donna, maybe even just, we could even leave it to the discretion of Aurora, but some sentence saying it must be used and
Somehow.
will not be paid out for.
Yeah, and right.
Yeah, I think at no time will the township
Yeah.
pay out for flex time.
Well, will the model
that be-
motion work, if it's not actually modified here right now
We could add that sentence
to the model motion?
to the model motion.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you want me, so I indicated in no, at no time will the township pay out any flex hours remaining.
And it shall be used within. the
Yeah,
pay
it's
period.
under,
I've got G9, I've got.
this is G11.
So we're on G.
Yeah.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, so Aurora, what was that sentence, at no time?
Will the township pay out any flex time hours remaining? And Joyce suggested,
And it shall be used within the 2 pay periods.
and it shall be used within the 2 pay periods.
Used,
Yeah, it shall
or
be used
lost.
within the 2 pay.
I would say, sorry. I would say any flex time not used within the 2 pay periods is voided or is
Forfeited.
lost or forfeited. I like that, is forfeited.
okay, one more
Yeah.
time, Aurora?
Any flex time not used within the 2 pay periods is forfeited.
Shall not be paid out?
Yeah.
No,
I think
just what
that's-
she
I
said.
think that's somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think the not be paid out part is.
So both of those sentences should be added?
Yeah, right. So if you leave your job and you have.
No,
flex
it's
time
good. I just
within
want to
your-
make sure I
you
have
get
it.
paid.
Yeah.
I can repeat that change, so I have any flex time not used within the 2 pay periods is forfeited. At no time will the township pay out any remaining hours. It kind of repeats it, but.
Remaining flex.
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 All right, with that additional language, is someone prepared to make the model motion? It seems like you.
So moved.
Okay. Well, all right, moved by Flintoff, support by Riser. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes. That brings us.
One note, I'm wondering, Brian, do we need Brian here anymore?
We captured you.
I don't think we.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
you're an asshole. Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Brian, for all of your good work. Thank you very much.
It's like a little Starbucks, you know?
Yeah, free Wi-Fi.
315. Yeah.
What's that line from Shakespeare? Wait not upon the order of your going.
Yeah.
J6.
Yep, we're on J6
So we have J6 and then J1,
Yep.
and then J1, and then we're done.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So J6, establish a remote work policy and a request for remote work form and include in the township employee handbook. So Aurora, you're up again.
So this was, brought forward, because there were a number of, employees who had, wanted us to consider a, work from home or remote work policy. So this was, a consideration that was requested by some members of the staff, so we brought it forward. Any questions from me or any information you'd like me to go over or?
Questions for Aurora?
Sure.
Clerk Flintoff?
I guess you.
Oh,
do you want it here? Oh, yeah, I'll give you my copy. Yeah, sure. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that, you, Aurora, and Joyce have spent a lot of time conferring with staff about that, and I want to thank you. I know that there are staff that this has been a really important issue for the board to consider. The policy that's here before us tonight is a little broader than I think that Scioto Township is ready for. Scioto Township's work, we're a very small staff, and most of what we do is in-person services. I mean, certainly fire, utilities, elections, tax payments, assessing. There are few to no positions that I think would be well suited for remote work, is my opinion. I think that there's a future where we might create a new position that might be suited for remote work, kind of, 2-3 day regular permanent remote work. I can't right now imagine what that position is. I know other local governments are exploring this.
Is there somebody asking for remote work? Is that why this issue was brought up? And can I ask?
Yes.
Can I ask Lori who it was?
Joyce.
Joyce? So who wants the remote work position?
Is that appropriate?
I don't know that we want to get into
Yeah.
it.
Well, so why, maybe
It has, it has come up with the township, with the staff, and, that information was shared with myself and with Aurora, and based on that, we thought we should make that item as an item for consideration by the board.
Okay, okay, I've got a team, a large team. I'll just give you my comment view on that. Cause I've got a large team that's obviously remote. We're all over
Right.
26 states. So I can tell you this, when we have everybody in an office, we are definitely more productive. There's no doubt about it. Some workers are okay, but on average, we found people who were used to working in an office and then went remote decreased by about 25%. In terms of productivity. So we measure productivity. We actually measure keystrokes. We do all kinds of crazy stuff to know how productive a person is, man. There's some developers and some really introverted people that like to be alone and they're more productive. But in general, from an IT perspective anyways, I can tell you that it's generally a bad idea. I don't know what these positions are, but I can speak it that way.
So.
That's including also our accounting staff. We found our accounting staff was not as productive when they worked remotely. We brought them all back in the office. There's lots of studies that'll support that too. So I don't know what your particular reason is. Let me see. I'm not gonna second guess you, Joyce, or second guess you. I'm just giving you our experience.
so this is an option. Well, it's if I remember correctly, I mean, putting aside COVID, this had to do with somebody having a family medical issue. That's where some of this started, and they needed to stay home with their family. And then they were working as well. for SIO. So I think this is more of an exception than the rule. Is that what I'm understanding? Like it would be, and then it would be a case by case situation, but we still need to have a policy. Is that what I'm understanding?
Treasurer Palmer, I sense you have something that you would like to.
So it's a nice idea. It's a nice thought. We dealt with this very special emergency situation. That's what we should do as an employer. But I don't like the remote work. You mentioned IT because of what you do, Martin. All of a sudden, when I need something from my IT person, he can't help me from his living room. I need him there.
No,
I
but the
just don't
response
think
rate and
we should
everything,
do that.
there's tons of evidence that proves when everybody's in the building, they're more productive. There's no doubt about it. There's very few cases where working remotely is more productive, let alone equally productive. I mean, you guys have read the newspapers. You can see that everybody's dragging everybody back to the office for a reason.
Trustee Riser?
So this really isn't much of a remote work. This is only for temporary or short term. This isn't a permanent remote work policy, right? This is only for somebody's in a jam, something's come up and they want to work remote or at home for a little while. Is that correct? That's the scope of this.
It could be, yes, a temporary.
Well, I mean, I'm looking, you got a start date and an end date, and I see the words temporary remote, and I see short-term arrangements. I don't see anything about permanence. We're not talking about letting, yeah.
Okay, John, I'd like to hear Joyce and Aurora's opinions on that, because I think the answer is somewhere in the middle.
I mean, we're not, to be clear, we are not envisioning letting anyone generally work from home, correct? Correct?
I don't think that was the
Remote?
intent.
No, I know, and I'm not saying we should, I'm trying to get clarification. This is when something comes up and they need to do it for a little while, correct?
The way this is written, employees can request, working from home. And when we say short term, it's not something that's indefinite. So basically it would be for a time frame. But I think the way this is written, it could be more than one time where the request was made.
See, and I guess I'm used to like working at home. Or in like where you can work from home, but you have to be in the office. Everybody has to be in on Monday and then you have to be in another day of the week, or you have to be in the office so many. I'm used to that at other places I've worked. That have remote work. So, I mean, and I'm not trying to be critical or laudatory of this. I'm just trying to understand the intention of the policy.
Well, and
Aurora, did you have anything to add?
The intention is correct, as listed, a temporary work arrangement. So it does indicate that, yes. But with the request for remote work form, this could be something that's asked for more than once. So.
It could be for a time frame.
so it's setting a new precedent, John, and.
No, I mean, to the employee who wants to work from home, this appears wholly unsatisfying, not that that's.
Agreed. I agree with your assessment.
Yeah.
Well, unless the employee wanted to only work from home for a period of time.
I wonder if, because I agree with Donna that, when an emergency comes up, we want to be responsive and do right by our employees, right? Or extraordinary situation, let me say. It could be an emergency or other extraordinary situation. I don't know that the policy that this one is really responsive to that scenario. This seems a little more regular. It seems a little more like kind of creating an expectation that this is an option to be requested and accepted or denied.
And then it would only be certain employees because fire and utilities cannot work from home.
No.
Right?
No.
So it would be, yeah.
There's a kind of an equity issue too.
Right, and it is listed that the positions would be designated
that are eligible for this pre-approved remote work. So yes, yes.
We don't have that at this juncture.
Right.
So you're advocating, if I understand correctly, for this to sort of go back and maybe come back with clearer criteria for
Tonight.
the circumstances or?
So short-staffed right now, as we grow, we'll have more, and that's going to be an issue with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
What's your thought, Aurora, in terms of, because we are hiring so much staff, you know, building teams. My partner Tara works part remote, part not. I've seen her with the pros and the cons of supervising people, of reporting to somebody with a small team. And part of what she's reported is, you know, it takes more time to build relationships. Takes more time to onboard. What is your opinion, Aurora, on if Scioto Township, being at the point in time where we are, implemented this, what would the impact be on culture and training up new people?
Yeah, and maybe there's a time frame that you have to work in person for a year before this could even be considered.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I
What's
think
your
it's
thought,
right.
Aurora?
So I do believe that it does create challenges because it's a non-face-to-face communication.
Okay.
Building collaboration among new and tenured. So the collaboration between these employees. So yes, it does pose some challenges. We are also limited in staffing and cross-training. So that's one of the things that we have been trying to work on with some of the positions is the cross-training. And first and foremost, we are here to serve the public and coworkers. So it does pose a challenge having limited staffing, even though we have been hiring.
So I notice on this item, there's no recommendation section on here. Joyce, Aurora.
Well, a major part of presenting this to the board is because it is something that the employees have requested.
Right.
And that is why it's in front of you.
Yeah, can I, and on that note, what about retaining employees, recruiting employees? There are people in certain businesses or certain industries, certain tasks that kind of are used to working from home. Like, and there might be positions here, I don't know, if you're working on a computer all day and you're doing billing and you're not interfacing with the public, then that might be something that can be remote work. I don't know. And then I appreciate that it's not fair to make Christie sit at the front desk and answer all the calls and all the people who come in while somebody gets to work remotely. So I appreciate the fairness issue and I don't know. Is this something that's ready today?
Is there, I think what I've observed is, I don't know that there are those positions because I would say that that's a question. I don't know that there are positions that can be done as well remotely than here. And if there were, part of the benefit to an organization who can adopt remote work is you save on office space, you recruit nationally.
We could lose people who want to work remotely. This could result in the loss of staff who want a position that they work remotely. Or morale issues. That's just a potential downside. That's all,
Exactly.
as long as we acknowledge that.
In theory,
And that's turnover in general. I have found, being in human resources for 20 years, we could lose anyone at any time for whatever reason. They're moving, their spouse is transferred, they found a job with more money, et cetera. So that's always
So if we don't approve this policy, how does the township handle situations where someone requests for whatever the sort of extraordinary circumstances may be, an opportunity to work from home for some time?
Well, I would think if the board want to have a policy related to emergencies or extenuating circumstances, then it would be different than what we presented tonight.
Okay.
Can we send this back and have it come back like that?
I think if that's the direction provided to myself and Aurora, we can certainly do that.
Like the procedures aren't very procedural, like an employee shall apply and you request this. I'd rather those are kind of value statements spelled out in the procedures rather than employee interested in working shall complete this form and rather than suggest and request a specific, the supervisor shall approve it. I mean, that's, I don't know, maybe.
Well, I also think if I'm understanding your idea about, emergency, I even think that the objective of the policy would be different. So in this one, and so they're just two different things, to be clear, like this objective is, the objective is that Scioto Township considers it to be a viable, flexible work option under certain circumstances. Caveat. It may be appropriate. I don't know, I don't see in here, John, like the objective is to recruit nationally. The objective is to,
No, I know. But I guess, did this go through legal?
I have looked at it.
Okay.
Aurora?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then we say chief administrative officer, why do we say that rather than township manager?
Because that's what's in a lot of our personnel handbook, that's what's in the statute.
It is the township manager.
Yeah.
I know.
As long as you have a township.
And if you don't have a township manager, it's in the
All right.
UBA.
Okay, I'll defer to the will of the body on this, whether it's to postpone it, table it, bring it back, or take action tonight, whatever we do.
I would move to postpone this consideration of this until there's an opportunity to allow for an opportunity for it to sort of be retooled as more of a policy to respond to extenuating circumstances rather than, just sort of an elective option for employees who may be deemed, qualified.
I move to table, I would support, if that's a motion to table, I would support.
Well, it's not a motion to table, it's to postpone, but.
To a date certain?
No, it doesn't have to be, just to allow time for them to work on it and bring it back.
For that purpose though, John, that'll be limited to extenuating circumstances.
Okay, so moved by Hathaway, support by Riser. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we've dealt with that. That brings us to J1, which Brandon's been waiting for patiently.
Every time he sits down, we lose.
Hey.
Thanks,
I'm
Aurora.
not a big fan of it either.
Night, Andy.
See you, chief.
It would be money that we were already spending if it didn't get taken away.
Would you like to introduce this item?
Yeah,
There's not a lot of
so
material here, so we may want to expand a little bit on.
there's a lot of material there. When it comes to the contract and technical specs, Sally's with us with OHM for those questions. To give a brief overview, we contracted with OHM to provide the contract and technical specs and then also take this out to bid. They did just so. They sent this out to 5 vetted vendors or contractors that do this work. Of those 5, 2 responded to the pre-bid meeting. Of the 2 that responded to the pre-bid meeting, only 1 submitted a bid for the actual work. That would be Pipeline Management. We received the quotes in from Pipeline Management, and roughly the average cost per year over the next 5 years was around $340,000 per year. I did not think that was acceptable to come back to the board and ask for that much money. This year on our capital improvement plan, we only requested $180,000 for sewer cleaning. Subsequent years would be $150,000 for sewer cleaning with an additional $200,000 for any repairs that needed to be made. So I want to make it clear, we did the additional years, put an additional $200,000 per year for repairs that need to be made in the system. It's a big point when it comes to the next step. So OHM and myself, we sat down with Pipeline Management and I asked Dave, the operations manager, if you'd be willing to do a 1-year contract, not to exceed $250,000. Looking at the funds, that were approved in the capital outlay, I believe that was a better recommendation to the board. Instead of getting the whole entire township cleaned and TV'd over 5 years, it will inevitably take a little longer. It could be 7 to 8 years. If we continue on this road and the board continues to choose to do a 1-year contract or expand it additional years, depending on the circumstances. Dave did agree that he would be willing to do the job for not to exceed $250,000. And so I brought that to Joyce's attention, that this is more the direction that I thought we should bring to the board. She agreed that it was better than signing a 5-year contract with roughly $340,000 per year. And so that's what we're bringing to the board. $250,000 for a 1-year agreement. Again, 180 of that thousand has been pre-approved by the board in the capital outlay fund. The additional $70,000 would have to be approved by the board to come out of the fund balance to meet that $250,000. So just be aware of that. And then next budgeting season, we would have this talk about what we want to do with sewer cleaning and TV. And that's kind of the summary of what I got.
I reviewed and approved the contract. Great.
Is there a change to the model motion? That there was some discussion
Yes.
this morning about that?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a
Okay.
new one.
Okay.
I have a question. So we just got one responded. So was that surprising, typical?
Surprising, Advanced Underground did some work with us when I first got here. They were the primary contractor for quite a few years. I know that they were one of the contractors that we submitted the technical and contractual specs to in order to bid on this. They elected not to join the pre-bid meeting. I would say typically, usually you would get more bids. For me, it was surprising.
Because we paid OHM to do this RFP.
Yes. Yeah.
And get the word out. So what was the outreach like?
Maybe if Sally's on, maybe you could ask her. since,
Yeah.
She put together you.
Oh, hey, Sally, you still here?
I am still here.
Right
So with this project, we did a request to quote instead of a formal RFP to the open market, mainly because when talking to Brandon with a 5-year program like this, you want a company that acts more like a consultant than just a contractor, because we also had things in there like emergency response plans. If Brandon has a sewer backup, we wanted them to be available to help on short notice. So we solicited bids from 4 qualified contractors that we worked with that have done township work in the past, that we have good working relationships with, that have proven themselves in other communities, rather than just trying to get a small mom and pop shop that may not have the staff or the equipment to respond to those emergency type situations. So unfortunately, like Brandon said, we only did get 2 contractors to show up to the pre-bid meeting and only 1 actually submitted. Everybody's busy right now. There's tons of work going on with a lot of the infrastructure money that's coming through from the state and the federal funds. So unfortunately, we did only get 1. It was a little surprising that we didn't get more given the companies we talked to, but given the market and how busy everybody is, it is what it is, I guess. Pipeline Management is a reputable company. I have worked with them across all of Southeast Michigan in a number of different communities. They're responsive, they're good quality. Dave Lesky will return calls. I mean, Brandon will justify they've already been out twice to help with emergency sewer backups. You heard about one today. They were out there this morning trying to help. So they're definitely able to respond to those types of requests, and I have no doubt they'll get the work done for you guys across 1 year or 7 years, however you just decide to go forward with that.
Sally or Brandon, either one. Is there a busy season for sewage, or is it?
The primary time is between summer and fall, but there is emergency services for sure and ongoing work during the winter time.
So if we went out for bid again, could we do that at a time when it's not so busy? Is that an option? Or if this is only for 1 year, I'm assuming that it's gonna be a year to year possible contract with the company, but that also gives us the option of bids.
Yeah, certainly in the fall where we start talking about the budget and whatnot. If that's something that we wanted to do, we could certainly send the same contractual technical specs out to other vendors and redo the quotes and see what we end up with and perhaps select a different vendor.
I'd like us to kind of tentatively plan. I mean, think about that. We don't need to take action tonight, but I think it was wise, Joy, to recommend the 1 year for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, as far as pipeline management goes, they helped us with our most recent sewer backup here on Zeeb Road. They responded within a couple of hours when they got the call. If we didn't get that response, Advanced Underground didn't respond, we're at the mercy of somebody coming, and it could have been even more hours before we got it. And then yesterday, when I got the phone call from the county about the sinkhole, they came out right away in person to visually inspect it, and then the next day, which was today, they fixed it, which is an amazing response time. When it comes to what Sally was talking about different contractors and what they have to offer, I witnessed firsthand over many years of working with contractors that have inadequate equipment and untrained field staff that are assigned to do the work, but don't have the capabilities to do the work. And so far, from what I've seen from Pipeline specifically, is that they're very well trained, especially the crew we got the last 2 times. Their equipment is new. They have additional equipment if theirs was to break down. Their response time is exactly what you would hope for in emergency situations. So as far as I can tell so far, this is the best route. Yeah, it seemed like we didn't get more prices to compare to, but kind of taking that back down and just setting our own limit not to exceed kind of takes away, spending $340,000 on a yearly basis. And then exactly what Sally said, they also are providing us with a 2-hour time period for them to respond to any emergency sewer backups. Rich and I don't have to call and beg companies that come here and hope to get an answer and wait 4 or 5 hours and have somebody's sewer flow in their basement. We get somebody pretty reliably within 2 hours to help take care of the situation. Part of this contract, they also provided quotes for potholing on the private side for service line ID, which recently through help with Sally and OHM, we discovered we have to identify 368 addresses roughly on the private side. When I took their daily rate, which was $6,250, and divided it by about how many addresses they could get done in a day, which was anywhere from 12 to 15, that comes down to about $480 a house. Almost 7 years ago, when I was in the city of Flint, they were averaging $1,000 just to identify one house. They were using the excavation method. I seen them as high as $800 using a Vector, like what this company would be able to provide for us. So we are getting an exceptional value, I believe, from that company as well. Not only are they willing to do the work, they have enough Vectors and staff to do the sewer cleaning program and do the potholing at the same time, so we can meet compliance with Eagle. And so that's a very good thing to know. I'm still in talks with Joyce about that, the potholing and seeing what we want to do with that and bring it to the board, if that's what we want to do. So they are able to do that. And so I think getting this contract started, we haven't done any sewer cleaning or TV. Well, I don't know the last time we TV'd. I only heard that we've spot cambered certain sections, but we haven't done any actual sewer cleaning in 3 years. And we see what that can lead to, as evident on Zeeb Road, and other places that this could happen to. If we TV'd the line on Jackson Road, we would have, and we did that regularly, there's a chance that we would have had good indication that that was actually happening before this occurred. So those are things that you proactively find when you do this type of work. So I think it is imperative that, if it's not now, that we definitely get somebody soon. But I do believe that a one-year contract will definitely let us vet them out and see if we work together good and the response times are well and they provide quality work. That, you know, this gives us the right time to vet them out and see if we want to continue working with them.
Clerk Flintoff, I believe you had a modified model motion.
I do with the input of Brandon and Rebecca Motti. The motion is to appropriate $250,000 from 590,000,973 capital outlay sewer systems to 590,000,935 system repairs for the purpose of contracting for 1 year with Pipeline Management to perform sewer cleaning and televising in Scioto Township for a cost not to exceed $250,000.
Support. Moved by Flintoff, support by Riser. Please call roll.
Riser,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Flintoff, yes, Brazo.
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
motion adopted 7-0.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brandon.
I
Thank
want to
you,
make
Sally.
just one comment. Careful, I'm not.
No.
Oh.
Thanks, Ally.
Thanks, Ally.
Um.
Of course, guys, have a good night.
Good night. In the future, I think we've tried to do that in the past, but sometimes you get. The board needs to defer to the people they hire. Cause I'm not even sure which pipe going down Jackson Road is sewer. We can't make some of these decisions. They have to, like you just did. Give us all the info. So we know, because we have to spend the money and sign the check. But please, in the future, the future board defer to your department heads. Because they bring us good information.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Brandon.
No problem.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Before we move to public comment, I noticed, a note, that I neglected to bring up earlier when we were modifying the agenda. That, Rebecca has sent, and I think we may need to correct item G14 if we could.
Yeah, I think with everybody's permission, I think we're okay just doing that administratively since we budget by department and not by account number.
Okay. All right.
Microsoft?
She had sent a note saying that the reference to the account in the model motion in G14 is incorrect, and she corrected it. So if we can just allow that to happen.
Yeah, because we budget by department and not by account number. I'll just make that correction.
All right. In that case, let's move on to public comment. Please come forward, same standards, same timekeeping.
Rob Pattinson, Scioto Township. Thank you all for passing the fire ballot. As a resident, I sincerely appreciate that. And again, thank you all for responding to my questions during open comments. I sincerely appreciate that. Mr. Stinson's report about the mailboxes getting run over qualifies in the contract under section 3, subsection B, item 7. The priority waste shall pay twice the price to fix it plus $500. That's in the spilled items section of that contract. And they spilled the heck out of those mailboxes, so that should be applied there. John Boyle left after opening public comment. Apparently, he wasn't interested in tonight's discussion. I guarantee he will oppose this, and we've got to be ready for that. I am happy to help in any way that I can. And Trustee Brazo, you asked a question of the three who are running about what their backup plan was for the fire ballot. I think you and Trustee Riser should answer that question since you guys are running too. Please do.
Thank you, Rob.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak during public comment?
I got my quick, I got up there so you could hit that timer. First off, I want to thank Clerk Flintoff because she's my hero with the transparency issue through the court case, and all of that could have been prevented And I think you might have cost us, Mr. Hathaway, one of these ladder trucks during this whole term of yours. But I want to talk about the road committee. Because Linda Smith was on there, and with the DDA, she says she can't be on the same committee because the DDA wants to do the roads themselves. Take their money. This is in their little road committee thing, DDA. Unfortunately, I watch all of these lately. And I don't see why not. We have all these other incestuous committees with people on every different committee. I know, I'm looking at you. But anyway, Linda Smith, I want to bring up the Gelman. And Gelman is very interesting because she said dioxane is everywhere down Jackson Road in her public comment. And I thought that was very unhelpful. And when she got, when they brought this MVAD over here, I'd like to know what is in that place for the cleanup over here. If she thinks it's all down Jackson Road. And no, it is, she put it right on the Eagle. Gelman comment. I couldn't get on Zoom because I had a comment about the bromate that gets exceeded with the treatment. Part of the problem with that technology and needing to improve that. I found that very disturbing. And that kind of comment for our entire township. Because I really believe it's mostly in the plume, and I made that under not the public comment on the tape. And I wondered why. Well, and when I see her at the road committee, I didn't come. If she's gonna still be on there, maybe it's my comment about that we need to be more transparent and these people need to recuse themselves on these meetings if they have some kind of any committee association where they're having, I'm tired, some conflict of interest or some association of making money off of some situation or supporting someone else. So, and I think we should do University of Michigan. I always love to bring their policies up here. That we should be transparent with, I'm serious about this, about salaries. Who's getting what? Just like any other public thing, I'd like to know how much Barry Lonick is making. Instead of me having to search for his salary, I'd like everybody's salaries there. Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you, Paula.
Anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Seeing none, let's go to the remote participants.
Remote participants, please raise your Zoom hand if you'd like to speak. I see Michelle.
One more time.
And Michelle, hello.
She's tired.
Hello, I hope you can hear me this time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yay, thank you. I've been a Scioto resident for 36 years and I look forward to many more years in the area. However, the ongoing problems with GFL, which is now Priority Waste, the current Scioto trash provider. The problems obviously are trash and recycling. People before me spoke quite well about it. Not being picked up on time, the poor customer service. I just think we have former township supervisor Jack Knowles and the former manager Bryce Kelly to thank for these current problems. And I thank Kathleen Knoll for being one of the individuals. And I think it was you, Clerk Flintoff, for also saying no, no, no to the long-term contract. I'm glad to hear, and I hope residents educate themselves on this trash issue or fiasco, as residents refer to it. Those who choose to do so will rapidly discover that Jack Knowles and cronies are behind the Fix Scioto negative campaign group that's recently emerged in the township. The Fix Scioto group has no clue on how to fix Scioto. Look what they did with GFL, the contract, and the mess they've created. And look at the lies they have spread about Jillian Carey and the continual disrespect to our competent clerk, Jessica Flintoff. Both people, Carey and Flintoff, have educated themselves extensively about the township, ours, and Michigan township laws. creating transparency and trust, which has not been the case with the current supervisor. I also say preserve, protect, defend. Preserve Scio's rural ambiance, protect our legacy farms, and I am glad to note, as I listened to the meeting tonight, that I support protecting our citizens that you've by a well-resourced fire department, and certainly at least upgrading for our current population needs. And I am very happy to say I support putting the SAD vote on the November ballot, and I thank you for listening to the residents and doing so. At least that's my understanding. I also would like to keep the SCIO board clean of sins of omission. Why would anyone sign a 10-year contract with no possibility of cancellations or adjustment? Meaning transparency is very necessary. So that's a protection, and also defend us from selling out to the developers, which are hungry to expand Ann Arbor. Jackson Road is an ever grasping amoeba of development, outward, outward, and outward, and all this need for more water and more transparency about the Gelman plume. Thank you, Kathleen Knoll, for being vigilant on that. But nonetheless, where's the Superfund? Where's all this going? When is enough enough? Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up, anybody else? I see no other hands.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Moved by Brazeau, support by Noel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, we are adjourned at 9:56.
Before 10.
Great. You needed.
Be on the box here.
Everybody.